as usual, I'm up a roof. And this week I'm without Niall Dempsey, who is out, luckily enough, on the golf course. And I'm joined this week by Allan Doris of BriggsAmasco and Vinny Friars of Bauder. Thank you, gents, for joining me.
Welcome.
And so we're going to head downstairs, and this week we're all talking about roofs. It's all about roofing. Well, here we are on the ground floor eventually, and again, thank you so much to both Allan and Vinny joining us. So, let's start off. Gents, from your experience, what's the most common roofing issues you encounter in existing commercial buildings, and how facility managers can proactively address them?
Lack of maintenance being a starting point. I think when you look at a facilities management company, sometimes it's front of house you look at,
Yes.
rather than all the nuts and bolts that keeps the building together. Often when I've went and surveyed a roof leaks or whatever else, you find that the maintenance of the gutters, outlets, just hasn't been done.
Yes.
And that actually adds to the problems and actually exasperates them.
Yeah, the drainage side is interesting because with the climate change that we're seeing all over the world, the amount of outlets you have with some roofs are just not fit for purpose now. There's not enough of them. And sometimes when we're surveying roofs, that's part of our advice, is that really you need to have the hard conversations about, you might need to think about a way of trying to find more outlets on this roof. But I agree on the maintenance side of things, absolutely. That's that. And you're asking about the guys running the buildings. It's worth them just noting any kind of guarantee they have for existing roofs might have a restriction on what cover they have if they don't maintain it. So it's worth understanding that. Ask your supplier or your contractor to see some evidence of that. And regular maintenance once, twice a year means the roof will last longer.
And aside from that, is there any projects you haven't thought, how could this get so bad?
It's been a few.
Yeah.
And it's certainly where refurb after refurb of overlays the same roof.
Oh, I've seen
sometimes outlets that are meant to be 110 mil become 70, 60.
And from a manufacturing point of view, they're saying that for the first time. From a manufacturing point of view, we see roofs where that was the wrong specification. 10 years ago, they should have been specifying something else.
Yes.
Whether it be something more robust. And this whole idea that one roofing system is suitable for every roof is just not true. And that's why, we want to be in, when we do look at projects with our contractors, with whoever, really early on to give that advice from the start of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's frustrating projects. It's projects where you really don't want to touch, because again, the scenarios behind it, and you know how to design health and safety aspects of it. But again, from commercial roofing projects, what's the most logistically complex job you've handled, and what were the key factors to its successful completion?
And we spoke about this at the start, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we did a joint project together, which would have been BriggsAmasco's life for 2 or 3 years, which was Edinburgh St James.
Yes.
Massive project, 5 or 6 years in the making, and I don't know, 40 odd roof areas.
40 odd roof areas. You also
Wow.
had bang in the middle of the delivery of the project, COVID hit.
Yes.
So everything that you were used to changed.
Yep.
Even things like deliveries.
Yeah.
Negotiating that hurdle of getting things into site and off site became a task in itself. It almost became a full-time role.
Yes.
We spoke about fixed prices. That almost became a full-time role where you were sort of navigating channels and waters that you'd never seen before. But suddenly the next day there could have been a 5%, 10% increase. And Vinny and myself and the team at Briggs, we coordinated that quite well. We worked well together.
Yeah.
But there was always that point that we would all lost control of it. Had we not communicated in the manner we had, with the regular meetings and catch-ups. Logistically, I don't think there's going to be a project, certainly in my lifetime, where it's the same challenges, purely because you take COVID out of the equation.
Yeah.
But you add that back in, or obviously when you look at the world's like now, potential wars going on throughout the world, it could lead to other things, and we might end up seeing similar challenges, maybe not in the home front.
So do you think that would directly with the supply chain
That
specifically
and,
around
that
that.
and if you look at what's it recently, Trump's tariffs.
Yes.
we spoke about,
Yeah, we
there's,
spoke about that,
there's potential impact there, or it's got potential to lead to something
Yes.
of increases in maybe having to monitorise a bit closer.
Yeah, raw materials, energy supply, fuel supply, you know, all that has a knock-on effect to what, you know, turns into a roll of felt
Yes.
when it's going to site. So hopefully it won't have a big impact, but we need to see how that plays out. In terms of Edinburgh St James, you know, we are, I said before, we want to be there right at the front to say every roof area has its own individual spec.
Yeah.
And on that project, you know, we thought we were covered, and then suddenly it's like, well, who's doing that roof? You know, is that us? Is that somebody else?
Yes.
And the little surprises that come along had to be managed as we go. It's a lot of admin, it's a lot of paperwork, but genuinely, in terms from our experience, although it was difficult, I've seen much smaller projects that have been more difficult than that. But because of the scale of it, I think everybody kind of knew up front that they had to be on the ball to make it work.
Well, I work hand in hand with David and Morgan on the toll cross.
Yeah.
And again, that had its limitations again, be it a fire station, again, restrictions around that.
Yeah.
It's managing my expectations of the job as such and how big the complicate, how the health and safety is, how the actual positioning of where it is.
Yeah.
Is it 24-hour operation? And again, all these factors really come into consideration for you guys. And I can imagine every job's complex.
Yeah.
Every job's got its own complexities. It's how you envisage the delivery of it, and you say about matching your expectations.
Yes.
Briggs' expectation for day one is to deliver the project safely.
Yes.
The rest takes care of itself if you deliver it safely.
Well, that's building up experience.
Yeah.
Getting to know exactly. It's almost like setting a template for each job, because each template grows because each job's different. There are jobs that are very similar, and again, scaling operation-wise.
The difficult ones for me are the ones where you have an unforeseen, you know, something happens that you didn't expect. Whether it be a refurb project where you're expecting to see a metal deck and halfway through it turns into plywood that's rotten.
Yes.
For me, the biggest headaches have been the ones where something happens. So whether it be an issue with the concrete halfway through, you know, there's a couple of projects where there's been treatments to concrete that stopped our membrane bonding to it. Nobody knows why. And that becomes, everything else goes to the side where you try and work out contractually why that's happened.
Yes.
I'll mention Passive House as well. You know, we're doing a number of Passive House projects now. The first big one that we did, you know, you go onto it quite happily that you know what you're doing, and then suddenly something happens in terms of the way the product's manufactured that isn't acceptable to people who are making those
You
decisions.
think you're prepared.
Yeah.
And you think you've done you've covered all your bases.
And
then
something
comes out of the work.
And then somebody tells you the rules you didn't know.
Yeah.
And the rules aren't easy to then deal with. So that, again, that everything else goes to the side because you're dealing with this one issue that wasn't unforeseen.
I was very lucky, actually, to be involved with both of you for the last year and a half. And you kind of kicked it off with the Bridges Skills Gap.
Yeah.
And again, I know it's really important to you guys because, again, you don't have guys that can do the job. What is the next step for you? So, as I said, you do really work hard to bridge that skill gap. But from from your perspective, what are the key differences in the current education and training pathways for aspiring roofers specialising in commercial projects, and for those pathways to be improved to ensure a higher standard of competency?
I think there's two things, just to kind of define what we're talking about. There's two things for me anyway. There's upskilling.
Yes.
So there's existing roofers who we want to be better and to continue to deliver excellence. And it's the regular training of these guys. So whether that be us or our competitors taking them to a training base and training them in the methods that we use, or whether it be regular visits to site, that's existing roofers. And we're working really hard on that. And, you know, at Bauder, we've got a training centre that's going to be upgraded in the next year or so that's going to really help towards that. But the other side of it is youngsters in roofing. It's bringing apprenticeship. And this is where, you know, I think we've really taken it in the last year. I've kind of helped start it. Alan's taken it to the next level with help from a lot of contractors in Scotland. And this is, how do you get youngsters who don't want to be doctors, don't want to be lawyers, you know, don't want to be YouTube stars, and maybe think construction's for me? How do you get them to think about roofing? How do you get them to think about flat roofing? Because if they want construction, they're going to be joiners, you know, electricians, plumbers, paint and decorators. They won't think about flat roofing.
Yes.
So what we've tried to do is give them this perception that it's not something they should forget about. The opportunities are there to earn well, and the opportunities are there to be in a career that we've been in for. I mean, I've been in roofing for almost 20 years now. You know, if you said to me back in the day, would you be in roofing for that long? No chance. But
No.
you tend to go in it, and you tend to stay in it because it is a great industry, and we want to attract, if we attract 1 or 2 kids in the course of the next 12 months that stay with a roofing career, then we'll have done the job.
I think the thought process originally was, so you went in and spoke to schools at the very early stages, and we've continued to support taster days through contractors delivering it, manufacturers delivering it. And it was important to plant that seed early, where these kids are making career choices.
Yes.
They're going home to talk to their parents and saying, I actually tried that today. And then maybe in a year's time, 2 years' time, if a plan A goes wrong, or maybe this becomes a plan A,
Yes.
that the parents say, but you actually enjoyed doing that, doing the flat roofing taster. And that's what sort of brought it to a head when we organised the Flat Roofing Open Doors Day, part of CITB's Flat Open Doors Week,
Yes.
where we looked at it and thought, okay, it's okay planting the seed with the younger core group of kids who are maybe making their subject selection,
Yes.
but what about the school leavers for this summer and the college leavers for this summer? So that's what we've done. We brought 10, 11 contractors together, a couple of manufacturers, Bauder and BriggsAmasco were part of that. Myself, for an NFRC committee member perspective,
Yep.
ensuring that was all coordinated. And on the back of it, we didn't just get good feedback, we got great feedback. We already know that interviews have took place, we know that placements have took place. We already know that the DYW, the Tigers group, these kids are going back and talking about maybe that career's for me.
Yes.
And that was a difference maker. We had to find something. I think on the day there was 140 people at the event,
Yeah.
which is massive.
That's incredible.
And it was 80 people that was really invested in the sector, with 60 kids coming in. And I just think that more needs to be done. It's a small drop in what we're trying to achieve here, but it's a wider spread.
The neat thing is we can begin to contractors concentrating the municipal level on the local authorities and the schools of their way to have convict. If one like that involved for the candidates, it's teams who's running this. And it's big to all the time. It was at a time, you know.
I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, for me, when I first reached out to me with regards to this, I was shocked to find that there is no generic roofing course. There is no apprenticeship generic for roofers. There's no college qualification for roofers.
There is a lot of it in memories, but
which is delivered at the CITB.
But it's the overarching.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, that's not a national qualification. It's a more refined.
no, it's a nice week. It's Scottish certification for people that live as an English. It's a visa for because
The problem is when
we look at what is a qualification, it limits them pretty much. It's
That's my discussion is.
however, we need something wider. We need something that's very big. What I'm seeing when I've been what back at the very yesterday thing in Birmingham. But what it's different is it's our memories to feed and like it's I will put him through where I saying the latch until no he didn't. I said you may be able to track record there. Yes. Because last it full piece. So that I can feel comfortable. Yes. That you're gonna say and sound independent. What did I what down what seeking, what a manufacturer. And then his brain of numerous. Next year or two, you need to demonstrate competence.
And you can understand why that's sustained for him. Yeah, been doing it for that long.
Totally agree.
And part of the NDQ, because this isn't maybe my speciality, because I don't recruit roofers. You know, my involvement has been from, I don't know, call it a place of frustration. Whereas we've been talking about it for so long to lots of really well-meaning contractors, internally at Bauder as well, and thinking, we have this shortage. It's only going to get worse. And they are, to do anything so you stop. And eventually I was like, right, let's do something. And as I'm learning more about some of the complexities, at times you feel like, oh, what's the point? And that this group that we initially set up, and Alan picked it up and ran further with it, was let's understand what these issues are and let's find a solution to it. Let's go and see the CITB, what can they do? Let's go and speak to colleges, see what they can do. Let's speak to main contractors about the requirement for CSCS cars to be linked to an accreditation. Is that really needed when we just want people to get experience on it? And every time we've got one of these hurdles, we're now, I would phrase it as enough's enough. Contractors are now seeing that we want to be successful in 5-10 years' time. We need, what is it? And this is why people are willing to then get involved. There's 11 contractors turned up at that event. They're all busy. They've got a lot on, but they want to give their time to support this. They want to get involved, and I totally agree with what Alan's saying. It can't be the same people, because eventually you run out of energy. People have taken so far. The next two people take the next step forward. The next two people do something in the background. The next two people deal with the next question mark on it, and it's all for the benefit of getting youngsters into our industry.
Innovative. Yeah, I think some felt. I mean, what was Alan getting at? I was actually getting time away from with him on weekend, and I concentrated most of my life for fun.
Yes.
Sometimes up to time. Next step. I tell you meetings with Vinny that were overwhelming. You're actually telling people
Yes.
what we've been doing wrong for many a year.
Yes.
And try to find teams is with the hurdles that they see. You hit 50,000 if it did more fitness. You're thinking, wait a minute, we're in the day. How can you not know to do the fitness? But that started because he won the confidence of that the foot was the young person rude. Whereas
The
Vinny
apprenticeship then is just refined to the flat roofing as such, isn't it?
the apprenticeships, it's a global.
Because I did a wee bit of homework, and there's
Yeah.
very little apprenticeships based on this.
Yeah. In Scotland, was the old vegan apprenticeship. So that's it. If they do that, that'll be biggest intake that Scotland have had. 30.
Why do you think it is?
I think that now the contractors are now
Look at them big up themselves, Jesus.
now the contractors are engaging with the CIP. They've now got a route to the school leaders through DYW or District Tigers who aim to the electricity for what I'm listening now in the chat is part of that now, and it now flat roofing animals like that.
I know I keep single pointing this, because again, it's me. I like marketing and economics, so it's overarching various subjects. And it's again same with if you're doing your apprenticeship in Sparkwork, same as you do joinery, so you're learning different facets of the business as such.
Yep.
So with a flat roof, and that kind of pigeonholed into one route with roofing.
It's big as big and veggie and then career. That's
Well,
why
I get that, but it's like if it's just an overarching roofing qualification as such, then you can do a module on flat roofing. You could do, because the reason why I'm saying this is, and I won't go on about it, because it does really interest me, because my father was an insulation engineer.
Yeah.
So he was up, he was doing cladding, and I always thought, well, especially with something that is involved in that. I remember when we were trying to rename cladding and roofing, and it was enveloping. There was loads of other names, and I just thought, well, surely that's where a college. Because I had a chat with Lynn at City College about this, and she said that is something that we would actually look at. an overarching roofing course as such, with doing the modules on flat roofing, doing the modules on cladding, doing the modules on tiling, so you're splitting it up, and so you're actually covering all that space, because that way you probably get, and again this is just my thoughts, is you probably get more engagement from your the people who are keen on it, the young youth. Does that make sense?
I think in an ideal world, have that available to do every element to it. Now, a couple of things on that. The sheer time it would take to learn all of that would be huge. Second of all, they are different disciplines. You know, if you look at like BriggsAmasco, you do flat roofing, you do cladding, and most of the contractors are like that. So the industry splits that way. You know, not a lot of roofers do flat roofing and slating and tiling at the same time as well. And to then have somebody who could then train in all those elements would be very difficult to get. Getting people to train them full stop, yes, it's difficult.
I'll give you a feeling. The NFLs. They worked hard developing a national side of the 11 field.
Yes.
So that's getting priority kicks. This year, there's 3 or 4 schools where Tonkus, Scotland on Lewis level, they go in, deliver the national side. Say the day. These tend to actually get to overcome that possibility. I love that. It says they've now got experience at the basic level of adult.
Yes.
And that to me is a little bit, small sector.
Yes.
It's a small sector there of the buildings and roofing in Scotland. If you can actually get 10 to 50, I'm making up to your pricing. One or two you can say, to get them. That again, it is for me, but I want to do that hand in hand with that. If we can develop in that time, I'm in talks with Warren, Scotland, what's the big steps? So the next step is how do we go on that?
You need support to do that for, and it's not one for manufacturers yet. It's it's one for the industry in general to try and do that as quickly as they can. You mentioned, Gerry, just as a slight aside, the whole principle of supply and demand is well used in your language, and it's something that if there are any youngsters who are looking for their next or their first career step, supply and demand is a really interesting one, because you look at my iPhone there.
That's next into the next training, right? The next question is, we're talking about the sheer number of skilled roofers. I mean, obviously for commercial products, and so the resource and availability. Do we have enough competent training that's continued within that to make the workforce want to do it, and also to increase the workforce?
Well,
exactly it.
To want to do it, why do people go into a career? They go in it because it's interesting, something they're good at, and something they can earn money at. That's not, beat about the bush. The supply and demand nature of there being not enough roofers and being a lot of roofs means that actually, flat roofers are getting paid a lot of money to do what they're doing.
Yes.
Again, I don't hire flat roofers, but I hear from our contractors how much they're now having to pay to get competent roofers. It's a lot of money, and they can earn really well, and it's a career that doesn't start and finish with you lay membranes. You could go into a sales job, you can go into a training job. The Bauder are fortunate to have 2 really experienced joint managed directors in the UK. One of them was an asphalter to pay. That's what he started doing, an asphalter, did felt roofing, and joined Bauder, a salesperson. He's worked his way up to being a managing director of a very large supplier in industry. It's a brilliant story.
Yes.
And I love the idea of whoever it may be in 20 years' time saying, here's my story.
Yes.
Here's how I got into roofing. Here's what I've done with it.
Well, that's what we discussed maybe when you were looking at, when you were talking about the PR and what to put out. It's that having a roofer and telling a good story of him, how his journey from, say, for example, up north on a roof and it's minus whatever, and then he's in Dubai working on a roof somewhere. And again, that
Where would you rather be, Gerry?
Well,
I've done the -20, but I haven't ended up in Dubai yet.
but again, that's the opportunities.
Yeah.
That's out there to them.
I joined the industry as a labourer and then got an apprenticeship.
Yes.
And I've seen every level up to
Yes.
where I'm at now. Running a stable branch. biggest roofing contractor in Britain
Yeah.
of the region that I cover.
Yes.
And it's, what I would say is, it's given me everything that I've wanted in life so far.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of I look at it on LinkedIn, this joiner's been laid off, this plumber's been laid off. The last time I've heard a flat roofer being paid off.
It's never unlike
So,
that.
obviously, people leave the industry for various reasons, but
Yes.
it's never for financial reasons.
No, I hear the pains obviously with our team as well, so I completely understand it. And it's funny because I always, as I said, for me to attract, it's showing the benefits of the job, showing where you can be. You can become you're a labourer and then you become an MP. You know what I mean? You can be someone who's worked in the tools and then had that journey. Because again, a lot of people don't know you're doing your height qualifications as well.
Yeah.
So I was speaking to my mate who works in the rigs. So he's got roofers out there now. They're on the rigs doing the.
So when you touch on competency, there it is there.
Yes.
What is the competency?
Yes.
The competency is you're qualified,
Yes.
you can deliver the works,
Yes.
you've got the experience.
Yes.
It isn't just about having one part or another, you've got to have it all. And the only way I'm going to either recruit a subcontractor or bring somebody books in is if they meet the competency requirements.
Yep.
Because you're getting charged or quoted, what you're getting quoted, or the hourly rate is what it is, and it's set of it. You want to ensure that the people you're paying that to is worth it.
Yes.
And the quality being there. And that's something that I'm seeing when I'm looking at people we've recruited or potentially going to recruit. The quality isn't there that's worth the money that they're charging.
Yeah, talking about the stories of people's careers and this, I'm jealous of these paths. That wasn't my path. My path was I wanted a job, and I quite liked the sound of this company Bauder that had places in Germany, and the careers come following that. I love the stories of people who've worked their way up. I wish I had that story. I don't. I'm a bit like you. I'm a kind of horrible sales guy who's stuck with it for long enough to get a reputation. But some of the stories are genuinely inspiring. It's hard work, and it's hard work in terms of it being labour intensive.
Yes.
It's hard work in terms of the elements you have to deal with, and it's also hard work because these guys have to be clever. They've got to be really switched on to do the detailing, from a flat roofing point of view anyway, to be able to think on their feet, to be able to problem solve, to be able to make decisions, to be able to use their initiative on it. These guys are clever guys.
Doing it safely.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, because we can tend, I remember being on the tools, and with safety, when I was 18, 19, the forefront of my attention, no, it was get the job done, get home, get to a pub.
Yes.
Whereas now, when I look at the young people coming through the industry and the experienced tradespeople, they only want to go home safe. They want to make sure that they make it home without any hiccup, without any incidents. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud that the industry's focused on that. That our industry is focused firmly on that, including through manufacturing.
And I think that's two things on that. I think that's a construction thing, that have really made that focus. Sometimes more health and safety. At Bauder, we did health and safety training 3-4 weeks ago, and it was about the regular checks on getting on and off a roof safely, about having first aid training, and it was phenomenal. It was really well put together training, and my God, it was so useful on it. But the industry on a whole has really, I think, done a great job in terms of making that the focus of people, and the statistics prove that's working. From a manufacturer's point of view, yeah. I mean, when I joined the industry, our method of bonding insulation was pour hot bitumen down and stick it all together. Guys were barely wearing gloves, never mind some of the PPE they've got now. We now have, self-adhesive products. We now have, cold applied products that work as adhesives. We have membranes that don't require gas torches in areas that may be vulnerable or combustible. These are all the industry working together to make it safe as we can.
I even look at stuff that we raise with manufacturing, and if we come across a problem, straight away, it's top of the list. Whereas I remember when I joined, when I came off the tools and started supervising and managing, and you'd email and say, there's a problem with that product or that data sheet or whatever else, it would go to the bottom of that person's file, and you'd have to chase it for weeks and weeks and weeks, whereas you guys are proactive, as is the other manufacturers.
Yes.
And you look at it and go, do something. They care.
Well, that leads to the next question is, especially with flat roofing, technology
Yeah, a lot.
It's been a fantastic project. Yeah. How much is technology, especially around flat roofing, make it more durable and efficient in a larger and a longer scale?
The products, the myth of flat roofing is, you know, it makes me laugh because, again, going back to choose what industry to go into, I'm sure flat roofing is maybe the one that has the best reputation in Scotland because they all think of these felt roofs that was the annex
Yes.
in their high school that was cracking and breaking and always leaking, and there's always a bucket in the corner. And the amount of times people say to me, "Oh, I mean, I would never have a flat roof in Scotland," and you have to politely remind them that the membranes have come on leaps and bounds since then. Already mentioned they move towards self-adhesive products, but you know, us and others have membranes that can deal with temperatures of minus 30 odd degrees.
Yes.
They're very thick, they're very durable, and they're lasting over 40, 50 years. And if I'm honest, that's not really a particularly new thing. That's been something that in our membranes we've had for over probably 30 years now. And we brought that on to the UK market with an idea of being something that was a full system designed and manufactured to work together. So that's been happening for a while. I think it's more the reputation of it that we need to work on, and I enjoy those conversations because it gives you a chance to talk about the work we go into designing it safely. The changes we've had over those years are actually quite wide though, in terms of the way they go together, the different products, the adhesives, the way to put it together quicker. The amount of testing that gets done is huge. Some of the changes we have to do now, when I was again starting with it, you did a spec, maybe did a U-value calculation. Now you have to think about wind uplift calculations, drainage calculations. Is it passive house? Does it have to be non-combustible? You need to deal with the requirements under BS 629 in terms of falls in all parts of roof areas. There's a lot more things that you have to kind of be aware of to get the right solution so that it does last as long as we want it to.
Well, that again is perfect into what I was going to ask, is basically around commercial roofs are changing, solar panels, HVAC systems, but especially towards you, Alan, because again I'll come back to you, Vinny, because you need to work around that and how much you coordinate with. How do you ensure that the roof's integrity is and the longevity to it?
Hiring the best staff we can. I'm not saying that out.
I remember being out in the at 3 o'clock in the morning and the pouring rain at Thistle because I wanted to go and see this. I love cranes, I love roofs, as you know. You can find me up roofs every week. But again, the HVAC units were massive going on at Thistle. So changing the weight bearing quite dramatically. So again, these are all the thought processes.
But if you're understanding of the requirements of what's required within warranties, what's required in terms of the thought process of how that's coordinated, if we communicate that well to an M&E contractor, a main contractor,
yes,
it shouldn't go wrong because everything's actually there in place to actually navigate around things like that.
Yeah.
Even particular tough detailing when it comes to M&E, there's a solution for everything.
Oh, totally.
But some people don't want to acknowledge that because it comes at a cost or it comes at a consequence programme. But if you get it right the first time, you're not going back to visit that.
No.
Yeah.
And that's an important part.
How much do you get involved in the design process of that?
Yeah, for the big word I would use is sequencing on these things. It's about understanding what goes where when. There's some horror stories out there of projects where it's already in place and then somehow we're supposed to waterproof round about it. You can't waterproof something that's already sealed to the deck like that when you can't get in. You don't have enough
Or the
space to it.
walls cladding installed before the flat
Door,
roof goes on.
door threshold, we've got a famous product where they put all the glazing in the windows and the doors in and then asked us how we were going to detail to it. It's like, well, you can't.
Yeah.
So that sequence inside Gerry is really important, and it's about communication. We had a meeting this week. We did a presentation to Morrison Construction on our blue roof systems, and it's quite new to them, so they're asking us questions about how we manage the safety of the building, how we stop it leaking, and a lot of that is communication. It's about understanding the weight loading parameters of it, making sure that the engineers are aligned with the main contractors and the design team, and it's in the best the best way of doing that for us in an ideal world is that communication right at the start of the project. We're about to start. Does everybody know what they're doing here? Does everybody know what they're doing at the walls? Does everybody know what they're doing when? Do they understand when the equipment's coming in? What do we do if it's delayed?
It's all about your iterations, basically.
Yeah,
That's a big part of what you do in terms of ensuring that the roofers that are delivering the works are Bauder approved.
yeah,
They've
absolutely.
had the training
And the management.
Same with ourselves.
Yes.
That these guys have got the qualifications and the skill set to install. So when you're delivering a message, they actually understand it.
Yeah.
Because if you took somebody that is say a joiner,
Yes.
and I started talking to them about roofing, I might as well be talking Greek. And
Can you speak Greek?
But to be
No,
honest,
and then
but then vice versa, if I was to take my roofers and tell them to go and work under a joiner and deliver a kit house, they just look at you and say, why?
Yeah.
Why? That's not what I'm trained to do.
But you have on those kind of projects, you know, you look at the benefit of having a roofing contractor who manages projects properly, and you look at the join up hopefully with a reputable manufacturer who take an interest in monitoring that work. You know, we have site inspections, a lot of our competitors do, where we've two people in Scotland who their job is to go to roofs and ensure that it's been installed correctly, to answer queries, to do training if required. And for me, if that comes at a premium, then I think it's a worthwhile premium for the join up between, you know, the contractors, whether it be Insight, Briggs or whoever else, and the right manufacturer. And just one last thing, again, I've said it again, from a manufacturing point of view, those kind of projects, it's got to be the right roofing system, in my opinion. You know, we've walked away from projects where, you know, contractors want to put a polythene vapour barrier and a thin single-ply membrane down and then put all this kit on top of it, because you're just adding risk to a project.
Yeah.
The most robust system and the most secure system would always be what we would recommend there, to ensure that you don't have problems further down the line.
That leads me perfectly on to the next question is, so for property developers, facility managers, what's the single most critical piece of advice you'd offer to select a roofing system or a contractor? So again, it's that, you're the salesman, we're the contractors. What do you think? What's the critical piece with you even going till
So
Bauder?
it needs to meet all pillars of design.
Yes.
It needs to achieve that.
Yes.
It can't be a trade-off, because that's really super good, that can be forgotten about.
Yes.
And I think that I've seen that at design stage, where it's fitting a square peg into a round hole.
Yes.
It's no fit for purpose.
Yeah.
But the client's maybe done a cost budget based on the square peg in a round hole.
Yes.
And sometimes the client has to be realistic to say, I can't get that for that.
Yes.
And it's got to be right. And that's what going through the correct manufacturer, as Vinny says. If you've got the relationship there and the manufacturer is the best at what they do,
Yes.
they will be honest with the client. Whereas I've found with some manufacturers that I've experienced when I was on the tool, they're not giving the full picture.
No.
And they're hoping to get the sale. And sometimes I've watched people walk away from the same manufacturers and it's not their problem anymore, it's
Yes.
the manufacturer's problem. And that's having a tight, close-knit tight team in Scotland.
Yeah.
You would know something was going on. And whereas I think at other levels, I don't think it always happens that way.
Yeah, it's communication. I mean, Stuart McKenzie, who you know used to work for Insight, has been a contractor, now works for us. He's a good.
They stole them. They stole them.
That was another night out. You know, him is a good example with the refurb projects he looks at, where, you know, he'll come to me, and it doesn't have to be me. It could be, you know, somebody else within the Bauder team, either in Scotland or elsewhere. It could be somebody else from a contractor. But the amount of times where I've come across this, I'm thinking of doing that. What do you think? You know, I've come across an Ashfield felt roof. To me, it looks okay. Do you think we need to strip it? You know, that's a very basic scenario, but you know, it's not somebody just throwing the same spec at every roof area. Yeah. It's really thought through. The advice I sometimes give to people that are looking at roofs is, it's great to diagnose what's there. You know, some people love that. They want to know exactly what screed it is. They want to know exactly what type of membrane it is. And we're well placed as an industry with experience to do that. But then we need to think about how we give the right solution to that. How we give a solution that's going to give peace of mind, that's got the right durability, that's not going to damage because there's a lot of foot traffic, that's got a guarantee that they can actually hang their hat on, and something that's going to last a period of time. You know, you don't want to be in a situation as a client, as an end user, where you've got a roofing system or anything really, where something goes wrong, you don't have the backup, the support to have it replaced, fixed, looked at. And I think joined up thinking with us and Insight Briggs and all our contractors is the way that we can deliver that to the industry. Communication, the right specs.
So wrapping up, especially with making everything future-proof, technology change, not just on a digital basis, but also on materials and sourcing. So, and it's interesting because I'm going to ask this Allan first, but you good to come in to see what you guys are up to in the future in developing. So, if you could equip every commercial roof with one futuristic roofing technology apart from Bauder, maybe self-repairing membranes or instant weather protection, what would it be and why?
I think we've got challenging projects ahead way past the point. And I think one thing that the technology needs to gain on is where there's a way to cut insulation to the tolerances expected to be passed the house on site.
Yes.
At a manufacturer level, it still cannot be achieved. So how can we as operatives on a roof to achieve the tolerances that's set within the parameters of part of the house for cutting insulation?
Yes.
Without void filling, without any ambiguity or any distress on the guys on site, it needs to be something like some sort of laser cutting machine or something. That kind of kit would work well with the current requirements of passive house.
Is it something you've looked into? Is it something that's
It doesn't exist.
No?
It doesn't exist.
Yet.
That's an interesting. There's your innovation hub right there.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a better one. I would like a roofing membrane that talks to you.
Yes.
Where you get somebody in an airport roof, they're putting a new vent for Costa,
Yes.
and they're going to dig into it with the membrane says, "Don't do that.
Don't touch me.
Don't touch that.
Yes.
Don't cut a hole in me," without speaking to somebody. It alerts you. Maybe give you a shock or something if you're going to do something bad to the roof. If you're going to damage it, shocks you. There we go. We've got some kind of corporal punishment. And
I don't think we're justifying electrifying people just because they want to put up.
I get what you're talking about, because how often does it happen that somebody's been to site, they've cut through your roof? I had one a good few years ago now. It's a normal story, and we got called it to a leak. And this wasn't at Briggs, by the way, but it was got called it to a roof leak, and the guy had decided to install a chimney stack in his house, put the flue through the roof. And
Was
it's under
wondering why it was
construction. Right, so he's got this wee log burner. And he's like, "Is that installed that?" And we're going, "Can't do that."
No.
Why? So we're away up there, obviously, coating and I think it was Seeker products back in the day. But it was like, we had to do something.
Yes.
Because it wasn't just affecting him, it was affecting the below and everybody else. And his living room was like, it was damp. It was just let it
What?
run down the flue.
Straight
It
in.
would disperse around about the fire, but it would spread across the floor.
Oh, we used to see it all the time. See the PV roofs, see when the feed-in tariffs for PV
Yes.
so high, we'd get calls. I'd say fairly regularly. "Oh, roof's leaking. Yeah, you guys need to come and fix it." And we'd find these holes just stuck through the roof, a bit of mastic round it. Roof's leaking. I was like, "Yeah, it's leaking because you've cut a massive hole in
I've
it."
done some drone surveys, and I laugh when I drive up to Clarkson Road and the tar, the different patches of tar, we cover the potholes, and I've seen roofs in worse states.
Yeah.
Like layered felt over layered felt over layered felt.
Yeah, we've seen a few projects where you're literally there for hours trying to cut through all the different layers of membrane that are on top of it, and the remit from the client could be, can we overlay this, and that's where you would talk about design, we talk about all the extras, but sometimes you've got to give the hard advice. You know, I certainly remember when I came into Bauder, and you want to please people, you want to win roofing work, and it was a very early lesson that sometimes you have to give the tough advice, And quite often, I think people are cleverer than we give them credit for. They get it.
Yeah.
You know, they understand, I'd rather cut the corners, but once you explain why you can't do something and the impact it would have, most people, if you put it across in the right way, they do buy into it. But yeah, you can't logic for, you know, people doing things that they don't understand. What's interesting about those PV roofs with all the holes, and the amount of times where they do that and they don't actually leak is phenomenal. You know, they're actually lasting, you know, even with those holes in them, it's mental. But yeah, that would be a talking, shocking membrane. I'm going to speak to the Bauder brothers about that.
Gentlemen, thank you. And
Thanks, Gerry.
it's great to find out even more what you've done, especially around the skill set and recruitment. I think that's fantastic. And just keep doing it. And thanks for coming in today, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Thank
Gerry.
you.